Welcome, welcome, welcome to Blue Feather Stories. I'm your hostess, Blue Thunderbird Woman, also known as Carol. Well, we are continuing our money series, our money story series. And it's interesting how initially I was really being called to share the money stories. And I had a few people in mind as to who I thought would be really kind of cool to listen to their money stories. And every one of them has been amazing and interesting. And even though each of them may have had some similar commonalities, but they all have their uniqueness to them. And today I'm bringing in a beautiful soul sister guest. Her name is Carol Morris. She's been in my life for a little over a year now. She's a wonderful spiritual leader, has so much capacity for love and holding people in sacred space. And she has this amazing money story. And I can't wait for her to share some of those pieces with us today because uh, to me, they're quite different than the other stories that we have heard from our other beautiful soul sisters. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring on Carol, and we're going to have a sacred conversation around her money stories and how that has played a role in her life. And we'll get to learn and feel and really understand how Carol has navigated her life in all senses. And so without further ado, welcome, Carol.
Well, thank you, Carol, my friend. I'm excited to be here and just spending time with you is always so much fun. So I look forward to it.
So, in the money stories, we kind of start at the beginning. We kind of look back at those impressionable years where our unconscious mind is completely malleable and receives everything as truth. It's really sort of the foundational pieces around the beliefs that we have around money from the ages of 0 to 12 is kind of those formative years. And so when you look back, Carol, looking at that sort of age range, what were your impressions of what money was? How did it hold or did not hold power in the household? Like, what was going on in those years?
Well, that's kind of fun to answer. I need to tell you my age because it'll relate back to sort of the era. I'm 75, going to be 76 next month. And so I'm talking about the 50s now. I was born in 48. So I'm going to go ahead till I was about 8 or 10 years old. Uh, in all of those years, maybe a little younger, we were a farming family. We lived on a farm, not a large farm, and we were quite poor. But the interesting thing about that is I had no idea we were poor. Why didn't I have any idea? Because all my needs were met and I was loved and money was not talked about. It was more about living happily. I never realized that we were poor actually until I left home and then looked back at my parents' life, comparing it to other people that had more. But I will tell you some things that I think formed a deep impression on me that had a lot to do with money. To me, it's not the word anything about money because money was not discussed. I think what I learned is the first thing from my parents I know, they their idea was never to be in debt. They didn't ever owe anyone any money. My father, if he owed someone money that was, you know, if he got a bill, it was paid immediately. He didn't ever borrow to buy anything. So they saved money to purchase what they needed. Um, Now, I remember there was one thing that happened that was different, and they had to buy an oil furnace and they didn't have the money anyhow. So that was the first time that I think my parents ever owed money and paid anything on an installment. But it was just the integrity of that. I didn't know the world would change and become a whole credit card system. Never owing people money, character and integrity with people, treating everybody with honor and respect. Those were just things I grew up with. And I think that those are integral, incredibly important characteristics for people that want to be successful financially.
Mm.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely, Carol. Yeah, actually, it's refreshing to hear a story that does not involve debt, that is debtless, really. And I don't honestly, I don't know that I know anybody today, other than maybe yourself, but I don't know anybody today that doesn't have debt. Like it is, and I spoke with that with one of our other fellow soul sisters, Jan Pilipow, about how debt was just so normalized. It became so normalized. So it's really interesting to me that you are, you grow up in a family and in an environment that says that that's just, that's part of the morals, that's part of the integrity, that's part of, well, this is how we do things. And kudos to your parents for not falling into that. It's like you said, you had all your needs met, but more importantly, you had love, which was like crucial. And I think that feeds us more than what money can put what food on the table. Yeah, beautiful. So as you're growing along, and like when did you leave home? Like what age were you when you left home?
Well, I was 17 when I left home, started to work at my first job. And my life story, we won't go to the personal story, but actually was married at 17, had my first child when I was 18, married to that man for 7 years, and then divorced. I'm only telling you that because then I was a single parent. Okay. But all those 7 years, I worked at positions because women were starting to work then, even though I was having children. But all of a sudden, then I was a single parent on my own at the age of 24. And so I became, I guess, what you call a career person.
Yeah. How old were you when you found yourself as a single parent?
24 with
24.
2 children.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yes. Yeah. All right.
And I didn't marry again for quite a few years, but opportunities came to me, and when I say that, why would I? I needed to make money. I took a temporary position that was available to me, demonstrating a scarf clip. I know this sounds silly, but I was trained, and in 6 weeks, I sold $10,000 of scarf clips. And I was just, and the thing about that is, I didn't even know how much money I made. I made $2,600 in oh my goodness, in the 70s, and in a 6-week period. But I had the key here is I had a gift, and I used the gift, and that's a big thing to remember here. We're all given gifts. Most of us don't know what our gifts are, and most of us don't use our gifts. We cover them up. Mm-hmm. So that gift impacted my life to the point that I was demonstrating in the Bay, and the next thing that happened was the manager of that department, didn't work for the Bay, offered me a job. And he offered me a job in management. Like, I'm like, wow, I'm 24 years old, and wow. So those kind of things just happened But when they happened, I was humbled by it. I was so humbled and in awe, thinking, oh, wow, wow, this is amazing. I really have to do well. So the characteristics that I left home with of um, always do more than expected.
Mm. Yeah.
Always do more when someone you have an expectation. Always do more. Go a step further. That was another basic. So that earned me a position and then a transfer to Manitoba with the Bay. I was transferred to the Bay, had a position there, didn't stay there because of unkept promises, financial promises they made me, and left and went out into the world then looking for a position again. It came to me, things came to me. I'm in the elevator on the way to a personnel agency, and the owner of the personnel agency's in the elevator. And I'm such a people person. We struck up a conversation. And by the time I got to the 17th floor, she hired me to work for her. Like, okay. I'm like, so here's another character trait I'm going to share with you. And I learned uh, way back then. If you're happy, notify your face. Like, be happy. Even if you don't feel happy, be happy. Be happy and be friendly. Something so simple can take you so far. And
Okay, we
it
need to
did.
repeat that. We need to repeat that. If you're happy, notify your face.
Yeah, put that on your fridge.
Yeah. Love that.
If you're happy, notify your face. And if you're not happy, notify your face that you are. Like,
I absolutely love that. Because sometimes we walking around, we're just walking around like zombies out there. And, we may not be unhappy, but, if we are happy, we still have this frown on our face, right?
yes, you need to practice a smile. No matter how, people always say, Carol, do you never stop smiling? And I say, no, I don't, because it's a habitual thing. It's a habit. And it is, look at yourself sometimes. When you look at someone who's frowning or unhappy, you try to make them happy just to get them to smile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyhow, that is a huge that. So if you're happy, notify your face. And if you're not, then get happy and notify your face anyhow.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Love that.
So
All right. So you're in the corporate world, and you've got a career. You're going.
Well, and being at a personnel agency got me to look at all the jobs I wanted to look at. And so I found myself a job while I was working there for the next 13 years, off and on. I was hired as a sales manager for a company in Winnipeg, and I would get overwhelmed with it. I like, and they didn't overwhelm me. I would just put all my effort into it, and I had a habit of burning out. And I'm going to say that honestly, it's very easy. Don't let yourself burn out. And I did that, and I'd say, oh, I have to have a rest. And my bosses would say, okay, go take rest. And I quit 3 times. And 3 times they kept, come back. We'll give you a $500 a month raise. Like, these things just came to me. I never, ever had to work hard to get any position. So I don't have an answer for why they came to me other than what we're talking about. I think it's the principles of the bottom line. I said this to someone the other day, and I think I might have said it to you. When you do the right thing, when you learn to do the right thing in your life will come to you.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's a very simple phrase, but when you learn to do the right thing, and that just isn't about your job.
No.
It's about your life.
Yeah.
When you learn to do the right thing, it will come to you. Yeah. And those are little things, like a little thing. We're off track here, but a little thing is I forgot my grandson's birthday last month. And I'm going, oh, I forgot his birthday. Man. So I went and bought him a beautiful card, and he's going through a hard time. And I didn't feel like sending it. I could have procrastinated, but I did the right thing.
Mm.
It's doing the right thing in your life, no matter how menial it is, or even if it's unimportant. If it helps someone else in particular,
Mhm.
if it shows love, if it's just the right thing, just do it. Take the 10 minutes extra and just do it.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Anyhow, so there I was in the corporate world,
Yeah.
and I decided to open my own business, and I left that job and opened up a clothing store called La Clotique for Passion in southern Manitoba, in St. Pierre, Manitoba. That was a huge learning curve for me as well. Um, that was that I did for a couple of years and had to close the store down. The huge learning curve, and in that process, then I needed a job, and there my old bosses were. They found me and said, "Carol, come back. We want you back."
Oh, so
And
before we move on to other ways in which you sort of started earning money in that whole process from that 24-year-old to where you are now, not now as in today, but now into where you are in your story, what did money ever hold any power for you? Like as a single mom, going from that to making like all this money in commission and realizing that you had a gift to sell scarf ties, clips, right? Like, where was there any time for you that money was, um, did it feel like a burden to have to earn? Did it feel like there was scarcity in your life? Like any of those things, did you ever go there, or you always just trusted that it was going to show up?
no, I didn't trust it was going to show up. Until some years later, there's a little bit of a story to that. I think more than like and I was making 50,000 was my salary in 1990 as a woman. That's a lot. Um, I I never I went back to my roots as a child, and I was thrifty and frugal, but I was more concerned about never having enough than trying to amass money,
Hmm.
or have money, or think I had money, or be one of those people that earned a lot of money. Yeah, it was more always to feed my family and feel secure that I always had enough to pay all my bills,
Hmm.
and never jump ahead and do something silly to be in debt. That
Okay.
again was really big.
Imprinted in
Um,
you. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And did you actually ever go into debt during those difficult years of being a single mom?
Not ever on my own. When I remarried, ended up getting into debt, but on my own, the only thing I was in debt for was I bought a new car when I was transferred from Saskatoon to Winnipeg. And so I had monthly payments. But
Mm.
debt in terms of credit cards or owing any, no, zero.
Okay.
As a single person, I've always been debt free. I remarried, won't go into marriage stories, but I ended up getting into debt in 1990, was 1990, January of 1990. I was married with a third child, a baby. My other two were already a little older, had my third child. And I was living on a farm, and my friend had joined the Watkins company and come to visit me. And I was so excited because I wanted lemon pudding, and I wanted pepper and cinnamon. I wanted all the things I grew up with. And because she didn't live near, she said, "Well, Carol, why don't you sign up? You can order it yourself." And I thought, good idea. Then I can just order what I want when I want. So I signed up. I had no intention of building a business. I didn't know if there was one to build. But that just boomeranged on me overnight, because the area I was living in, everybody around me the Watkins man that was there had died. And then they found out I was in Watkins, and my phone just started ringing, and somebody said, come and do a party at my house. And so I made it up. I made up a Watkins party, and I didn't know what I was doing. It was January of 1990, and I thought, this is crazy. It's 30 below. What am I doing? But four ladies that night said, oh, this was so much fun. Come and do it at my house. And that first night boomeranged into a part-time business. I made $33,000 that year, part-time, just part-time. The next year I made, like, in 1990.
Yeah.
Doing home parties
today.
Doing home parties. And what happened is people would come up, and I hate selling stuff. I dislike selling anything. So all I did was demonstrate, and everybody knew the product, and people would say, oh, can I do this too? Can I do this too? And why did they want to do it? Because we were having so much fun.
Yeah.
We were just having fun. And so my second year, by the end of the first year, I had a small group of people. It was multi-level. At the end of the second year, I had a group of people, and we set a record in Watkins. I didn't know we did that. We just did what we were having fun doing. We sold $750,000 in Watkins that next year, and went to a convention and found out we broke records, and like, whoa, nobody did that fast before. But we formed, of course, I think multi-level is really famous and wonderful for forming a family.
Yes, community, beautiful.
Community is huge, and it becomes a very important, integral part of your life. It's part of your lifestyle, and I was doing a lot of teaching. I had started self-help courses when I was 26. The best book that it needs to be a book that should be for every child. How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. That book is a must for everybody. But when you read it, you have to do it. It's not that you just read it. You have to live it. And that's what we did in Watkins. And so we had this group of people that were all on the same level and plane. And if they weren't, they wanted to be. And it just kept going. So third year, I made over a 6-digit income, and that continued for another 10 years.
Wow.
And through that, again, it wasn't about making money. I helped other people. My goal was to help the other person make money. My goal was to teach them how to be with people, to draw people to them, which would naturally help them make money. When they made money, I just got my checks. I mean, I didn't think about it. They just came, and I earned 14 all expense paid holidays all over the world. It was phenomenal. I became a speaker for Watkins. I trained for them. I produced audios, produced videos. I was married at that time. My husband was really a computer guru and very technically inclined. So we actually he had a separate business where we produced our own audios and videos, and Watkins bought them and sold them.
So you even had created a second source of kind of like a second source of income from the first, right? Like it's but tied to the first, tied to the network marketing.
It was amazing, and it wasn't a plan. We just did what was the next natural thing to do to enhance our business, and we didn't know it would be so good that other people would want it. And again, it was just an amazing experience. But I was always thinking about always having enough. It wasn't that I was making money. I remember I was in Spain on one of the holidays, and we were all out. All of us was the Watkins had taken us there, and we were out shopping. And I remember this very clearly. And you'd think, why would a woman who makes over $100,000 a year even think this way? We're in a store, and there was this incredibly gorgeous red sweater with gold braid all around the cuffs, and I thought, that sweater's $150. I don't remember what year that was, but that was a lot of money for me. And Carol, I actually spent $150 on that sweater. And so again, I never ever put myself in this mode of I'm making money, I should have this or that. Things, Crystal and China, a lot of things just weren't important to me.
Mm-hmm. It sounds to me like the six-figure income never really infected your ego.
It didn't affect mine, but I will say with great love, it affected my husband. And he took over our finances, and we did get into debt, and there's no criticism of any kind. It was part of the journey of my life. That was one of the best experiences of my life. Ending up all of a sudden one day realizing that we were in debt, and I had a word from the creator source. My life was going to change. I wanted to do something different, and we were in debt. So I had a word like get out of debt, need to get out of debt. And I'm telling this story because I think a lot of people are in debt. They don't know what to do with it. What we did was make a decision to, first of all, forgive anyone that owed us money. People owed us money. We forgave their debt. Forgive those that trespass against you, anyhow, that whole thing. Mm-hmm. We forgave debt, and we took our debt that we had, wrote it down on a piece of paper, and I said to my husband, I don't care how we do it. If we give each person $20 a month, we're going to start paying that debt. Everybody gets money. Everybody gets money. And I miraculously, Carol, it wasn't long. It wasn't long. We had a dream to buy a property. My husband did. That was his dream and his motivation to get out, but to do it to become debt free. So we worked at that. We sold the business, which we did get a lot of money for that business, paid everybody we owed, and ended up actually buying a quarter section of land, property, cash.
Wow.
Cash. Wow. We paid.
So you're in, and you don't need to share the number of debt that you found yourself in. And then you sold your Watkins business, and you paid off all your debt, and you paid cash for the property.
Well, it didn't happen that quickly. With the money we earned, my husband decided to go into the rental property business. So we actually, with that money, purchased properties that ended up sort of getting us into debt, again, partially into debt. It was another learning experience of doing something that maybe I wouldn't have done. But it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. It's again a learning. It was a wonderful, we think of negative as so bad, and it's not. Things that happen to us are all opportunities to learn. And so it wasn't that we just jumped from being in debt, paying it off, got the money. With that money, we bought properties. And so again, we had to work through a whole bunch of things with integrity. And when we ended up selling our rental properties, we were able to buy our farm cash. And we owned our vehicles. We had no debt. Mm-hmm. We had zero. We owed no one any money at all.
I find it fascinating, and I don't know if you've actually tied this together or not, but your roots in life start on a farm, and back to understanding all your needs are met on that farm. and then always the integrity and always not being in debt, like never going into debt. And then so many years later, you find yourself back on a farm, no debt, right? It's almost like you've
Yes.
gone full circle.
And truly, we, when you say that, my husband and I, at the time, my husband and I went right back to our roots of, a great big garden and living like our parents did, baking bread, canning, all of those things came back into my life. And for me, that was just I retired after 42 years of working, because after I sold the Watkins business, I was in ministry in Canada. I was traveling Canada. Yes, went right back to the roots, and it was just so much fun again to find another aspect of who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I think that I'm missing here in the whole story, I wasn't an overconfident girl or person at 24. I became confident in my work, but not necessarily secure as who I was. I really didn't know who I was.
Mm-hmm.
It took a lot of years to know who Carol was. I knew what I was capable of in my career and work, but I wasn't always confident as a person. That took a lot of failing.
Yes.
That took and I have to say that a lot of failing and getting up again and falling down and getting up again. I made a lot of personal mistakes through this process. You might think, what a successful woman, but I made a lot of personal decisions that weren't good and had to start over again in my life a few times. But there was another theory that I developed, and I became quite well known for it when I spoke all over the world. And that is, and people know me for this, when you're down, you get up again. And when you're down, and you will go down, and I hope you do go down, so that you have the opportunity to get up again. And when I walked on stage in my speaking years, after a few years, the crowd knew who I was. When I was walking on the stage, they just start saying, get up again, get up again, get up again. Because if you go down 6 times, what are you going to do? Get up again. So what I always say to people, like, what is your choice? Come on.
Yeah.
What is are you going to stay down?
Yeah.
Go ahead if you want to, but it doesn't matter how bruised you are.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how bloody you are. It doesn't matter how much pain you're in. None of that matters. Mm-hmm. What happens to you does not count. It's how you handle it. That's what counts.
Yeah.
And that is the lesson I learned.
It brings me into some of the shamanic teachings of working with the animal medicine of the jaguar in the West. So I should take a step back, because the animal medicine of the South is the serpent. And the serpent allows you to shed your skin all at once. So it's like letting, it's kind of like when you were sharing, I didn't know who I was at 24. It took me a long time to figure out, who am I, right? And so the serpent helps us to shed our skin, all the labels, the beliefs, the things that don't serve us anymore, the things that are complete. And so we do that multiple times, as we're always doing that. But when we work with the medicine of the West, with the jaguar, we are actually, there's a part in the prayer that says, and the jaguar medicines helps us to go beyond death. And I see that in your story of falling down. What are you going to do? You're going to get back up, right? And so the death is really like, it's every time we fall, there's a reason for that falling. Yes. And there's that person who fell is no longer the person who is rising.
You're right.
So that person has to die.
Yeah.
Literally, like it, and I'm not talking physically die, but they energetically need to die. And that's the medicine of the West. Is jaguar brings us courage. she also is fearless. So when we die, it's like that aspect of our ego that needs to die,
I was
right?
going to say it's the ego thing because
Yes,
that's what, when you're down, your ego's in great pain and you're
yes,
humiliated, like, oh no, I did it. Like, but it's happened to me a lot. And
yes.
and I think that has to be a big part of the story. It's not like I went from one place to another and everything was just great. I've been
Mhm.
through a lot of pain and hurting, but that pain and those experiences, the experience of the being down, the pain and the sorrow and the heartache of all that, were the best things that ever happened to me. Because
Yeah.
every time I was down and got up again, like you're saying, it was us. It was a surrender and rising. It was
Mhm.
like rising up with with an intention. Okay, I learned. I'm
Yes.
not going to do that again. And did I do it again? I'll say yes, I did sometimes. I made that mistake again, or partially made the mistake, didn't learn. And what I did learn was, if you don't decide to have a better and different intention, you'll keep going around the mountain and keep making that mistake.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and we choose our life. We create it, for goodness sake.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I don't think we really, well, I mean, for sure, we're not taught that we have that power to create, but that's all changing now.
It is.
We really are stepping into our power and really uncovering the amazing, human experience that we're having right now. I mean,
Oh, it's yes,
so amazing.
it is.
So today, then, when you look at your money story, and I love it because the way in which you're sharing your story is really, um, it's like your identity is not tied in to how you made money or how you lost money, and how it's actually quite refreshing. The one thing that we've uncovered through this series is that we as women really have learned and been programmed to identify our self-worth through money. What I'm finding and what I'm hearing from you, and what I'm really understanding is that that was not ever questioned for you.
No. As a matter of fact, when I was married to my husband, who's now passed away, I'll tell you, in 2004, when I gave over the reins of paying all the bills and handling the money to him, I remember the day so well because that was huge for me because I was always in control.
Mhm.
I had control and I gave that over to him. I remember thinking, okay, God, creator, I called him God at that time. I said,
Mhm.
okay, God, if you're my source, I'm going to trust. I'm just going to trust, give it away and trust. And that was the day I stopped worrying about not having enough.
Oh.
It wasn't that I was worried about having lots. That was the day I stopped worried about not having enough because I said, okay, I am going to trust from now on. Did that trust bring more money? Nope. We got into debt after that.
Mhm.
But it brought me more experience of hardship to learn to trust.
Mhm.
And the trusting in the universe or the source, which really is learning who you are and trusting yourself. When you learn who you are and you learn to trust yourself, you can freely give away the worry and the issues that come with lack.
Yeah.
Giving away the concern about lack.
Mhm. Mhm.
How am I going to make the meet the bills next month? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Just stop it. Like just stop. Like so from that time on, it's been a journey of trust. And so even from that time on, much money has come into my life, through my life, into my life, left my life. But I've never lacked everything I needed plus more. And, and that has always carried me forward to the next experience of even where I am now. Before my husband passed away, again, when we sold our farm, and we didn't end up with what people think you should have all this money, but we had everything we needed to move to the next level. Cash free, like we could still live with no debt. Again, I'm going back to no debt. No car payments, no visa payments, no mortgage payment. And that is a really, and those things are pretty freeing. And people listening to this will say, well, how can I do that? I can't do that. Well, stop saying I can't do it. Just saying, I'm going to live with no debt. Start saying, I'm going to live with no debt.
No debt. Let's do it together. I'm going to live with no debt.
Yeah. I'm going to live with no debt. I'm debt free.
Yeah.
And so, and stop thinking in the next breath, how do I do? Just stop thinking about that. Just, be calm, be still, go within, know who you are, get up, do the next thing that's right, and it will come to you. It will come to you. I wear a pendant, my pendant, and it says, what you are seeking is seeking you. Everybody listen to this. What you are seeking is seeking you. But if you're running, it can't find you. So you need to stop and be quiet. So what's seeking you can find you. For goodness sake, just be quiet. And still.
Beautiful.
Be quiet and still. So what's seeking you comes.
I think that's a beautiful, beautiful wisdom. And, just going back a little bit in just making that decision that I am debt free, or, I no longer live in debt, or however is the words that you want to use. That's like extremely powerful. And I always share this with everyone, is like, when you're about to make that decision, like really just say, okay, I'm done. I've had enough of this. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to live in debt anymore. I want to be debt free, because it does bring us a sense of freedom, because otherwise we're enslaved into the whole programming and the way in which the economy works. We're enslaved in. It's really interesting, but you really need to be clear on what you currently tolerate, because what you're tolerating, then you'll always be comfortable tolerating. And this has been my lesson through the last 10 years, is really, really, really grasping the concept that, okay, I tolerate being in debt. I tolerate being in the overdraft. I tolerate having a mortgage. I tolerate these things. These things all feel comfortable to me. They've been the norm since I started my workforce career, right? It's been the norm. And so I think that when we make that decision, like you're saying, is you just need to decide and go, that's it. That also means that you have to move the measurement of toleration to a different spot. You get pulled back into what you're comfortable with.
So you gotta sit quietly and say, what is it I truly want? If you know what you don't want, and if what you don't want is what you're tolerating, so what's the opposite of that? What would be the opposite of what you're tolerating? And if you think of the opposite, you might think, oh, I can't have that. That's too big. Well, just stop that already. You deserve to have everything in the universe that it can give you. So start making a list of what you do want. And that's one thing I've done all my life. I make lists of what I do want.
Okay. And I want to go here because I'm being guided to go here right now. So it's really easy for us to identify what we don't want. We don't want debt. We don't want to be in that scarcity mindset. We don't want to, always be stressed out about how we're going to pay the next month's bill, all those things, right?
Yeah, right.
And then when we sit quietly, as you suggest, and we start thinking about the things that we do want. So we want time, money, freedom. We want to be debtless. We want to do these things. So here's where I struggle, because this is the piece of information that I got a long time ago. The things that you don't want and the things that you want, how do I say this? There's still lack.
Yes.
The things that you want, you don't have. You lack
Yes.
that. So it's still
Yes.
a lack mentality. And I
Yes.
think we get caught up in that. Well, I sat quietly and I made a list of the things that I don't want. So I'm clear on that. And then I made a
Yes.
list of the things that I do want, but none of that shit's happening. Like,
Yep.
why isn't that happening? I made my list, right? And so here's where both of them are in a lack mentality, sort of energetic vibrational frequency.
For
And so
sure.
where I challenge people, and that probably this is what you did without consciously even being aware that you were doing, is that and I don't want to put words in your mouth, you can agree or disagree, but you at some point tapped into the energetic field of having. I already
Yes, I
have
did. I would like to give you the bridge.
it.
I'll give you the bridge from those two sides. The lack and you're tolerating and don't want over to what you do want isn't there. The only way you're going to get from one place to the other, in Carol Morris's opinion, is here. When you're there and you don't have what you want, but you have what you think is not so good, I will tell you one thing. What you've got that's not so good is really not that bad. And you can find in that life something to be grateful for. And when you learn to be grateful for one little thing, and I don't care if you're crying on the floor, get up and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. I can get up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I have food in my fridge. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I have a bed to sleep on. Just start thanking the universe or God or whoever you want to thank. Just start learning to be grateful. That mindset is the bridge. That mindset of gratitude is actually the bridge, and you have to practice it. It's not something that comes easily when you're hurting or feeling lack or thinking, I can't pay that bill. Say, thank you. I'm paying that bill. It's coming to me. The money's coming. Thank you. Just start saying thank you for whatever. Just do it. Even just say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I just go around because my life is so damn good. I just say thank you, thank you, thank you, because I can't believe it. But I remember being in pain. I remember being in pain. I remember being in lack. And I remember thinking, I'm going to be alone the rest of my life again as a widow, but thanking, whether you understand this or not, learning gratefulness gets you into alignment with your true self and the universe to bring to you what you deserve.
Beautiful. That's a really good place to end it.
It is. It is. Because there really isn't anything else that we need to say. If we said more, it would mess it up.
That's beautiful. Well, Carol, I just really want to thank you so, so much for joining me today and sharing your money stories. I feel, and I know our listeners are going to pick up on this energy as well. It's like, thank you for the bridge. Thank you for all of the beautiful nuggets of wisdom throughout that you learned, and just thank you for being in this sacred space with us today. Really, we truly do appreciate it. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
I just want to say one thing to all of the listeners. Dream that you can dream even if you think you can't do it, I want to say you can. You can. Just dream and write it down and say it
Mhm.
and be grateful. You can do whatever you dream you can do. It's all possible.
Beautiful. You've all heard it from Carol, so thank you so much, Carol, for being with us. And I know that we will take this wisdom in our hearts, and as we practice it, our dreams will come true. Thank you so much.